We want to turn your attention to this report that have nothing to do with what we are talking about at all. It's like a total 360 degrees turn. You know what I'm saying? We gone foreign now, foreign news. The Israelis, and I got this from a reporter, it's doing in the newspaper in Jamaica. I don't know why it's not in the newspaper in Jamaica, but I guess them don't feel that it is big enough, or maybe it never reached the American newspaper. But Israel expelled 8,000 African immigrants because they threaten Jewish identity. Listen to what I say now. Them get expelled because them threaten Jewish identity. What the hell is Jewish identity? I know what is Jewish identity, but you must answer it, because this is not something that we should take lightly, considering what is happening in the world today. But I don't know if I can get to play this. I can't see if I can play it off the wall or something. I can't see if I can play it. I can't see if it will come up. Because this is very serious. When you find, say, Africans are threatening Jewish identity, it will come up. Because this is very serious. When you find, say, Africans are threatening Jewish identity. All right? Now, really. All right, make it work it a different way then. Make it work it a different way. Because we have on the line here David Sheen, a journalist. We have on the line David Sheen, a journalist here. All right. We want to play it and then we connect to David Sheen, journalist and filmmaker, reporting on Israel and Palestine. And we're talking to him all the way from where? Israel? Where am they now? Canada. Oh, in there, Canada. All right. Before we connect to him, make him hear it. If we press that, all right, make him hear it. He can't hear it, so he can't hear it. Yeah, he can't hear it. All right, we're going to play this clip here and make me tell you what we really are in the
history of the Jewish people, which...
Wait there, we have to start it from the beginning.
Supposedly, the biblical history of the Jewish people, which...
We have to start it from the beginning. All right. Make we connect up this thing here properly, because this is very serious. Very, very serious, even though it don't have nothing to do with Jamaica at the moment.
The biblical history of the Jewish people, which supposedly indeed fled persecution, crossed through the desert and made their way into the promised land, much like these African migrants fleeing violence perpetrated by governments or militias, crossing through the Sinai and indeed landing in Israel, is a comparison that Israeli authorities are loath to. They say there's absolutely no comparison, that it does not hold any weight, that these people whom they refer to as illegal infiltrators, as a matter of fact, are only here to better their lives. They're economic migrants, so basically seeking to find jobs out here, and that's it. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has justified his government's response or crackdown on this community by saying that they threaten, and I'm quoting him, the Jewish and democratic character of Israel. His former interior minister had even gone so far as to say that Israeli authorities should make their lives miserable in order to discourage them from wanting to stay here, and certainly encourage them to leave voluntarily, and also discourage their peers from being tempted to join them in Israel.
Okay, so that is a report. But here the thing is now. The other day when somebody disturbed Denmark, some shooting up going on in Denmark, Mr. Netanyahu declared that the Israeli the Jews in Denmark should come home, meaning that them should come back to Israel. He's asking that the Jews in Europe should find them land according to where them call them land, Israel, which is really a travesty, because remember years ago, the same Israeli government played plane load at least 10,000 Ethiopians into Israel. As we say, we have on the line David Sheen. David Sheen?
Hey, how you doing?
Good afternoon, sir. I don't know what time it is now. It's about
We're in the same time zone right now, so it's afternoon here too. Good afternoon to you too.
All right. You heard the clip I just played a while ago about the 8,000. I don't know if you were listening to it.
The Israeli government, as you pointed out, has been perpetrating a policy to expel these non-Jewish Africans. We're talking about 60,000 approximately who entered Israel in the last 6-7 years. And it has been each gradually expelling, first of all, the South Sudan, ethnic group by ethnic group. First the South Sudanese and the Ivorians, and now focusing on the Sudanese, the North Sudanese, and it's expelled these 8,000 and, sending people back to the tortures they fled from. And you've already spoken about the ethnic cleansings and the political persecutions that they fled from. And what's more, when they entered the country, they often were brought in by gangs of human traffickers who tortured them and, gang raped them. Like, really horrific stories. These are people who really, the minute they crossed the border, they should have been treated with dignity and be given a space. And clearly, these people are quite intelligent. Those that have managed to reach Tel Aviv are kind of like the cream of the crop of their societies. If they manage to escape these horrific conditions and cross the deserts and get there, we see photographs of people crossing the Mediterranean, thousands of people on boats, dying and floating, drowning in the Mediterranean because they're fleeing persecution. So if they actually manage to get there, really, we should be washing their feet the minute they cross the border.
So instead, wait, just a minute. You're actually saying that these Africans are doing exactly what the Jews did when they reached the now land called Israel. They were running and they end up in Israel, and they were given that land by the British.
Mm-hmm. So how is it that even though essentially these Africans are almost repeating the same narrative, the same story of fleeing persecution, how is it that the Jewish people don't recognize them as their own spiritual descendants, so to speak? Yeah. The truth is that the government did not institute a policy of educating people to values of universalism. They didn't say that the lesson of the Holocaust is never again to anyone. That's not what they teach the children. They teach them never again to us. And they instill in people this idea, not that there is racism against many groups and we need to fight racism against every group. Instead, they said that there's, everyone hates us. Just the Jews, as if there's only one kind of hatred in the world. And therefore, the only way to survive this is for basically to do what the Nazis wanted, which is to ethnically, to make the state ethnically pure. You talked earlier about bringing the Jews from Denmark and from France. Yes, Netanyahu is constantly encouraging Jews from all over the world to move to Israel, so all the Jews can be in just one place. Right. And for all the non-Jews to gradually leave, or those Jews who are trying to come, to prevent them from coming, so that it'll be some kind of ethnically pure state. This is the irony, that it's they're taking the lessons of what should be anti-racist lessons, and they're perverting them into racist lessons. This is the policy of the Netanyahu government. And so as a result, we have, as you pointed out, make their lives miserable, rounding Africans into camps. I'm talking about, people walking around downtown Tel Aviv and people swooping in, snatching them, throwing them in vans, driving them off, and putting them in camps, literally camps in the middle of the desert. Thousands of African men in camps. But we're talking about the government promoting this hatred, this idea that they're infiltrators, that they're cancer, that they're Ebola, to the point where average Israeli citizens there's the levels of hate crimes towards Africans. We have an African kindergarten in Tel Aviv firebombed by Jewish Israelis.
Oh, yes?
And in the end, they don't get any jail time for this. We've got a 1-year-old African baby in her mother's arms in downtown Tel Aviv. Israeli Jew comes and stabs this baby in the head. 1-year-old baby. You know, I'm not saying every Israeli Jew is a psychotic murderer. Far from it. But the point is that those people who are on the edge, that's who they'll take their anger and their insanity out on, because the government has been promoting this idea that the Africans are the threat. And so this level of hatred is off the charts. It's, you know, it would baffle anyone, and yet, as you pointed out, barely reported, if at all, in the mainstream media, in the United States or anywhere else.
What do you think it means when they say the Africans are threatening Jewish identity? What do you think it means?
Well, I guess that's code speak for we don't want non-Jews in this country. It's funny. He says we threaten the Jewish and democratic character. No, there's nothing about the democratic character that they threaten. Actually, if anything, just the opposite. These Africans who come here, they tried to, when the government started to round them up and crack down on them, they held peaceful protests and marches. They gave Israelis a lesson in democracy. They could have taught them democracy. It's nothing to do with the Jewish and democratic character. It's just about the Jewish character. And what that means is simply they want a country. I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got a neighborhood, and everyone in that neighborhood eats one kind of food and, you know, has a day of rest on the exact same day and celebrates the exact same holidays. And, okay, so it means that in the street where you live, all the stores will be closed on the same day and all this. That's, you know, when you live in a neighborhood of the same character. If you live in a big city, big cities are multicultural, and multicultural means that you have different foods and different music and different types of ways of being. Now, we recognize that as a positive thing. We think of diversity as a healthy thing. Yes, it's good to have, you know, individual cultures, but it's also good to have safe spaces where cultures can interact with each other and new fusions can be created. Go to New York City. Why is it such a great place? Go to London. Go to international capitals where there are people of different ethnic groups. Jamaica is a prime example of people from different parts of the world who all brought their own flavors, and together they combined to something even greater than the sum of its parts. But what Netanyahu is saying is the opposite. They want your tourist dollars. They want you to come do a pilgrimage to Israel and spend money there and see the holy sites. Then they say, yes, we're multicultural. Yes, we're, international. And yet they're trying to drive out the international flavor. They only want one flavor. They don't want the African flavor there. They want just one kind. And there's no logic to except for race.
Do you think that the continuous expansion of Jewish land into the Palestinian land is the reason one of the reasons for that is to bring Jews outside of Israel into the land? You think that they are preparing the land for the the repatriation of Jews into Israel?
Well, I mean, it's true. Israel is one of the more dense countries in the world, and Gaza is even more dense. So, yeah, it's true. A part of the reason for territorial expansion might be, but the truth is, most Jews in the world are not moving to Israel anytime soon. Most Jews in the world are living in places where there's no threat to their lives.
That's what the Jews said. That's what the Jews said.
Jewish people, there's some attacks, but there's not compared to attacks on people of color. There's all kinds of hatred towards people. If a Jew is living in New York City, let's put it this way. Yes, there are some Jews leaving Europe and going to Israel, but every single year, more Jews leave Israel to move to Europe. Jews move from Europe to Israel.
Yeah, just hold on, let me take a little break. Just hold on a minute there. We should come forward to you. Yeah, this is the Stepping Razor. We're talking to David Sheen about a very serious case of expelling 8,000 Africans and more because, according to Netanyahu, they threaten Jewish identity, and this is part of the whole nationalizing Israel into becoming a pure. It sounds Nazi to me. It not sound Nazi to you, Mr. Dean Sheen.
I wish I could disagree. I wish I could disagree. I mean, we're not in 1940s yet, but you know, the Nazis came to power in the 1930s and slowly began to institute one racial law to another. And sadly, we're at the beginning of that slippery slope, and if we don't turn back quick, it's going to look even worse.
Yeah, because I realized that the guy who was talking about in Denmark, he was saying, as a Jew, there's no way I'm going to run from Denmark because of violence when he build up in family and thing they already. So Netanyahu cannot really tell him about come home to Israel when they have already made a home in Denmark. So I don't know how much Jews going to take that serious and go back to Israel itself.
Right. Well, I mean, personally, I think migration is a human right. And you don't need a reason whether you feel connected to a place or whether... I think human beings should be able to migrate. That's a human right. So if someone wants to come from Denmark to Israel, great. If someone's Palestinian and they want to go back to their home in Palestine, great. If you're an African, great. To me, that should be a right. But as I pointed out before the commercial break, yes, there are Jews who are leaving Europe and going to Israel, but there's even more Jews who are leaving Israel and going to Europe.
Yes.
There's problems in Israel too.
Yes.
It's not all fine and dandy. There's terrorism. But, economically, it's very difficult. There's more and more racism. So there's people who are leaving.
Yeah.
It's a place, it's a country that is dense, but there's a big desert, you know, that the people could be living in. The point is, it does seem that in recent years that the Netanyahu extreme right-wing government has stepped up the colonization of the land, driving out non-Jewish people, increasing Jewish presence in what people had hoped would be a separate Palestinian state, giving advantages to Jewish groups, especially religious Jewish groups, to have large families and take over large plots of land, and demolishing homes of Palestinian people and entire communities. So it's like it's a war over purity, and it's a war over resources, over land, and in recent years it's stepped up, and meanwhile there's near silence from the international community. People haven't been calling Israel a pariah or a rogue state. You know, there's no attacks, international coalitions to demand that Israel change course. Just the opposite. You have governments, you know, embracing Israel and signing free trade accords with Israel, and fating Israeli leaders and treating them like with great honors in other countries. So there's no incentive for Israel to change course. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I see where Netanyahu is almost taking on America now, or Obama, in relationship to Iran, where he's saying now America has dropped the ball when it comes on to investigating and really checking out the weapons that Iran is near to build a nuclear bomb. So, and he's supposed to be going in America to actually say these things, you know. So it's as if he's looking for he want to be the leader of the Middle East, so-called, in relationship to security and justice there. I don't know. It looked funny.
Well, you know, it's funny. Recently, I saw a newspaper clipping from the 1980s, okay, where an Israeli leader at the time was saying, you know, in 2 or 3 years, Iran's going to have a nuclear bomb. Now, this is the 80s. This is like going back 30 years, right? It seems like they always need a boogeyman. They always need to have, if it's not Saddam Hussein, if it's not Iraq, it's Iran. If it's not this, it's that. It's always about, you know, those brown-skinned people, you know, with their ways, they're trying to destroy life as we know it. It's like they're trying to turn Arab people into some kind of supervillain comic or something, you know, and I am the great hero, Netanyahu, I will come and be it's ridiculous in this country, in Israel I'm speaking now. I mean, the only reason why he's still in power, Netanyahu, is because the rest of the alternatives are even worse. I mean, we're you know what I mean?
Like Jamaica,
yeah, it's really quite something that he can go to the United States and basically embarrass Obama in front of his own Congress and saying, you're not tough enough. I'm telling you how to be tough. Netanyahu said the same thing about attacking Iraq. He kept trying to convince the American government to attack Iraq. And now what do we have? We have something even worse than Saddam Hussein. We've got the Islamic State, ISIS, beheadings, smashing of, museums and artwork and burning books. Yeah. So I don't think Netanyahu is necessarily the go-to guy on foreign policy. And he's definitely not the go-to guy on racial policy. So it's a shame that the American politicians are so sycophantic and they're so deliriously like lapdogs that drool over Netanyahu's every action. It's a sad state of affairs, but this is the world we're living in, I guess.
Yeah. All right. We never introduced you properly, but as a journalist and one who has made documentaries on Israel and Palestine, you can tell Jamaican people what is your most known documentary on this issue between Israel and Palestine.
Sure. Well, people are welcome to go to my website, davidsheen.com, and they can go to my Twitter and my Facebook. I'm always updating it. But if you're looking for one piece, just to bring you up to date, I would say there's one 10-minute piece, which gives you just 10 minutes, if that's all the time you have. It's called Israel's New Racism. If you go on YouTube, you do a search for it, Israel's New Racism. And also, if you want to get a long piece of, say, a 1 hour-long documentary to get a little bit more deep into what's going on here, especially vis-a-vis the African people, then you go to Israel's War on Africans. You search that on YouTube.
Israel War on Africans.
On my YouTube channel.
David Sheen, Israel War on Africans.
You got it. David Sheen, Israel's War on Africans. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for really accepting this invitation to say what you're saying. And we're going to keep at it, and we hope that we call you again. You will respond as how you respond today.
Beautiful. I'd be happy to. Thanks a lot for keeping people informed.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. Give thanks. Yes, we have been talking to David Sheen, journalist, filmmaker, reporting on Israel and Palestine. And we're talking about a headline that caught my eye recently, where it said that Israel expelled 8,000 African immigrants because they, quote-unquote, threaten Jewish identity. And we see where Netanyahu is calling for Israelis to come back to Israel. Meanwhile, they are expanding their capture land from the Palestinians. And is trying to make Israel a pure state. That sounds very much like a Hitler talk. Very much like Hitler. I don't know how people see it, but that is the exact thinking that Hitler had about other people, that he want a pure race of people. He don't want to mix people. So he started to wipe out the Jewish people and some black people. Wipe them out. Now we say there is a people who have gone through this atrocity and has pricked the conscience and the consciousness of the people all over the world. We're sorry for them because of the 6 million Jews that is said that was killed by Hitler. We see that there is a making of a new Nazism, Zionism, that is taking place with this Netanyahu about the purity of Israel, because these Africans are threatening Jewish identity. Very, 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 very serious indictment against Netanyahu, considering that he is the one now that is coming down on Obama about Iran and the possibility that 2-year time they will have a nuclear weapon. I mean, we are here that the amount of 2-year time when we are here Iran are going to have nuclear weapon is unbelievable, man. It look like them saying that Iran needs some help, man. It look like them need some help. This is the stepping razor the art of war.